Here's something most traders don't want to admit, but I'll say it plainly. The vast majority of trading psychology advice you see online is completely useless. Not because psychology itself doesn't matter, but because what's being sold to you isn't psychology at all. It's therapy sessions disguised as strategy, and therapy doesn't make you profitable. Let's break this down, rebel to rebel. Most advice in this space is built around calming you down when the market stresses you out. You're told to control your emotions, to breathe when you panic, to journal your feelings, to stay disciplined in the heat of the moment. Sounds reasonable, right? But here's the trap. All of this advice assumes that the problem is inside you, that you're broken, that you're too emotional, that if you could just summon more self control, you'd finally make it. And I'll ask you straight, how many times have you tried this cycle? You calm yourself down, you promise yourself discipline that you swear this time will be different. But the moment the market throws you a surprise, everything shatters. Why? Because psychology without structure is just noise. You can't therapy your way out of a system that is designed to break you. Think about it. Every time you take a trade without structure, your brain is on fire with uncertainty. Of course, you're emotional. Of course, you panic. That's not because you're weak. That's because your process is weak. The problem isn't your feelings. The problem is the design you've been taught to trade with. And yet, the industry feeds you recycled slogans. Cut your losses short. Let your winners run. Manage your emotions. Trust yourself. Do these sound familiar? They're catchy, but hollow. They don't give you anything to hold on to. Imagine a surgeon being told to stay calm during surgery instead of being trained to follow a procedure. Imagine a pilot being told to trust their emotions in turbulence instead of learning the flight protocols. It's absurd. But in trading, it's standard advice. And traders wonder why they stay stuck. Let's interact here. Think back to your worst trading moment. Maybe it was blowing up an account. Maybe it was revenge trading. Maybe it was that one position you were sure about, but the market ripped the other way. Now, ask yourself, did you fail because you didn't breathe deeply enough? Or did you fail because your system wasn't built to handle that situation? You already know the answer. See, the old psychology advice operates like a band aid. It tries to patch your wounds, but it never questions why you're bleeding in the first place. Rebels think differently. We don't just try to calm ourselves after disaster, we design so disaster has no place to live. That's a completely different game. And here's the myth that really needs to die: the idea that discipline alone can carry you. Discipline is fragile. It cracks the moment emotions rise too high. That's why you've had moments where you swore you'd follow your rules, only to break them seconds later. It's not because you're weak willed, it's because the old advice expects you to fight chaos with sheer willpower. But rebels don't fight chaos, we structure it. We create systems that force correct behavior, so discipline isn't a decision, it's the natural outcome. This is why most of what you've heard about psychology is useless. It keeps you trapped in reaction instead of training you to design. It teaches you to wrestle your own impulses instead of eliminating them through structure. It sells you on the idea that if you just toughen up, you'll survive. But survival isn't the goal, rebels. Thriving is. And thriving demands architecture, not affirmations. So let's go deeper. Think about risk. Most psychology advice treats risk as a feeling, your ability to handle fear. You're told to get comfortable with losing. But that's another trap. Risk isn't a feeling, risk is a number. It's structure. If your system clearly defines risk, fear doesn't even get a chance to show up. You don't need to convince yourself to accept losses, they're already accounted for. The emotion disappears because the architecture took care of it. Now, let's look at timing. Every trader gets trapped here. The psychology gurus will tell you not to overthink, not to hesitate, to trust your instincts. But instincts are unreliable in a chaotic environment. That's why hesitation creeps in. You're stuck between fear and impulse, and no mantra can save you. Rebels don't trade timing. We trade recurrence. Our focus is on building structures that capture the market's repeating behavior. And once the system is in place, there's no guessing. The trade isn't a gamble. It's a structural outcome. And then there's the myth of confidence. How many times have you been told you just need more confidence in your strategy? But confidence doesn't come from pep talks, it comes from proof. It comes from watching your system repeat itself over and over until trust is inevitable. Old psychology tries to trick you into manufacturing confidence out of thin air. Rebels know that confidence is designed, not imagined. So when I say most psychology advice is useless, I'm not dismissing the role of the mind in trading. I'm saying that your mind cannot operate in chaos. You can't build consistent psychology on inconsistent behavior. And that's why the advice fails. It keeps you looping in self blame when the real solution is structural. Here's what this means for you right now. If you're still journaling emotions without journaling structure, you're wasting time. If you're still telling yourself to be disciplined without building a system that forces discipline, you're stuck. If you're still chasing confidence without recurrence, you'll forever doubt yourself. That's the trap. That's the cycle. That's why 90% never escape. Rebels think differently. We design risk before we trade. We design structure that replaces emotion. We design recurrence so timing becomes irrelevant. And in doing so, we no longer need the therapy sessions in disguise that the old system feeds us. Our psychology becomes unshakable, not because we fight harder, but because the structure itself does the fighting for us. So ask yourself, are you tired of patching the wound, or are you ready to stop the bleeding? Because here's the truth. The psychology you've been given is a leash. It keeps you calm enough to stay in the broken system, never questioning its design. But rebels cut the leash. Rebels rebuild the system itself. And when you do that, psychology transforms from a struggle into an asset. It stops being your weakest link and becomes your strongest shield. You don't need another pep talk. You don't need another list of affirmations. You don't need another guru telling you to meditate before a trade. What you need is a structure that kills chaos before it even reaches your mind. That is the rebel way. That is why most psychology advice is useless. And that is why you're here. Because deep down, you already knew it. You just needed it said aloud. Rebels, if this hit you, subscribe right now. Share this with the trader who's stuck chasing discipline without design. Drop a comment below about the worst psychology advice you've ever been given. I guarantee you're not alone. And check in for more truths like this, because every week we're tearing down the illusions that keep traders stuck and replacing them with design, structure, and intentionality. This isn't just trading. This is rebellion. And in this rebellion, we don't just survive, we thrive.